Okay, good. Good. So now let's say you have developer A, okay? And then you have developer B. Let me go ahead and change the color. Developer C. And I'm calling you guys a developer. If you write code, no matter if that is for, you know, application or that is for automation, it's the same thing, right? You are still a developer, right? You're still developing tests. So just know that. So A, B, okay, let me just B. C. So these are the name that we're giving right now. So these are each individual person. And then you have D, right? So these 4 people, assume that these 4 people are working in the same exact team, in the same exact repository that you can see right there. Now, one of the challenges that you will have is that developer A, when they want to work, let's say there is, they're working with the repository. This is your GitHub, okay? So let's say GitHub master branch, and I'll give it a nice name here. Repo, let's say. So when they want to work, they're working with the same exact repository, all 4 of them. And so this guy, this, and this, all of them working under the same repository. Now, let me ask you guys a question. What are the challenges that you think is going to happen if everybody's working with the same exact repository? What are the challenges do you think they may face when everybody's working under the same exact, you know, file, for example? So if you really want to think about and visualize, think about a Word document, let's say, right? Everybody's trying to write an essay, right? And they're supposed to write one part at a time. Somebody's supposed to write, you know, maybe like an introduction. Somebody's supposed to write the first paragraph on the essay. Somebody tried to write the second paragraph. So everybody is assigned to their own, you know, section into that essay in their Word document. So what do you think will be the problem if they all work at the same time?
I think
Same
it will.
file.
I think it will replace other people work and also replace the master copy.
All right. So what's going to happen is this guy, this person A, is going to write the introduction. But when initially before working, he will take the Word document, right? Let's say this Word document belongs to a shared file, right? Shared drive, whatever is the case. So he goes in there before he, you know, and there is an empty file created for everybody to work on. And this is your empty file, right? Now these guys take the empty file and start writing introduction. This guy takes the empty file and writes the first paragraph. And this guy writes the second paragraph. And this guy actually writes the conclusion of the essay. So when these guys are ready to go ahead and say, okay, I'm done, this guy is going to go first and he's going to go ahead and push his changes. So he has the introduction. B is going to say, okay, here, I did my work, and he's going to go ahead and add his file. And now the file gets replaced with his file, right? Because it's the same name and everything. Now, the work that A did is no longer there because they had initial condition, everybody had the same, right? Empty file. So is the C, and so is the D, right? Now, in order for this to be prevented, what do you think they can do? Forget about GitHub. GitHub doesn't exist. Nobody created GitHub yet, let's say. So what are how communication, maybe communication come in handy in this case. How do you think they can help each other and not override each other's work? What other ways? You guys can think about anyway. I'm sure you did that in the past with, you know, it could be work, it could be friends, or whatever is the case. You guys have some situation like that. So nobody has a solution to prevent this kind of incident. where A pushes the changes, replaces the existing file, and then followed by B replaces the existing file, and C replaces the existing file, and D replaces the existing file. Nobody has this kind of solution. Because, you know, before GitHub, people actually worked. You know, GitHub is not a savior to say, okay, right now, everybody should be, you know, fine. Before it was not fine, right? They
I
did
think
the work.
we can communicate with each other like before pushing code or maybe sending email to each other.
Yeah, so not only sending the email, you can, let's say the A is ready, right, and pushed. So A doesn't have any problem because it was empty regardless. So we replace the file. Now the B calls A and say, hey, did you make your changes? And he says, yeah, I already did and done. Now B, what the B does is that whatever changes he made, because everybody worked at the same time and they're done. And now when it comes about replacing the file, they were coordinating together. So, so now what the B did is B said, you know what, I'm gonna take all my changes that I made and I'm gonna save it somewhere in a notepad. Okay, so his changes goes, and he changed the differences in the notepad. Then he looks at the changes that A made, okay? And then under that paragraph, which was his introduction, he then copies from the notepad and pastes his changes and he pushes. Now the C knows that, okay, B is done, I'm gonna do my part, right? And he will do the same, and D is gonna do the same thing. So that solves the problem, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Yes or
that's
no? Yeah, so that's in a way, in a low tech way, solving the problem by communication. Now, the problem with this is that, you know, that requires a lot of communication, right? That sometime you'll be like waiting for A to be done. Maybe you're done before A, and now you're gonna go to the meeting and you're gonna say, well, A is not done. If I push now, he's gonna override my changes, so I can't push it, right? And that's where the productivity kind of gets lost, where B is waiting for hey, C is maybe waiting for D, whatever is the case, and it's just not very efficient to deal with. So now when you have GitHub, so let me just go ahead and erase all this problem. So now when you have GitHub, what's happening is that when A is working on, they have a clean copy. So this is a okay, let me just type this is a master copy, right? This is a remote master, okay, remote/master. So just know the naming convention, we call them remote master. So now A, B, and C, and D, so whenever they want to work on a new branch, they have to create a branch for themselves. So what they're going to do is A is going to basically create a local branch, right? So that in his side, so he's gonna take this and he's gonna make a copy, exact copy, okay? Oh, what am I doing? So he will take this and he will make exact copy, and he will then give, it will be called master, right? So initially, so that's his local master. Okay, so now he made the exact copy. So for some reason, let's say B had changes and he pushed his changes here, then A can do a pull to his master. That means he can actually take all the changes that this guy pushed and to his master. So that's the first step that he did. He made a new branch. Okay, so sorry, that let's just go into that. So this local master is there by default as long as you have the repository. Okay, so it will have your master. So this local master for A is there. Okay, so what A is going to do before he he's going to copy the local master and create a new branch. Okay, so the new branch usually we call feature branch or whatever is the case. but let's say he's working on login test. His assignment is login test, right? So he gives a nice name to his branch, right? So he's going to say login, add login test, maybe add login test, right? So that's his branch name right here. So the difference between this and this is nothing, right? Because they're pretty much identical to each other. So the local master came from the remote master, and then this guy went ahead and look at the remote master and created a new branch so he can start adding his change. So now the next thing he did, he made the changes and it's no longer the same. So the changes is basically done with the same exact branch with the changes added, right? So this branch is now with the same exact name, but it has the changes. Login test. And now this actually has all the changes, all the new code, right? Was added in this branch, right? So this is still the same branch. It's just that this one symbolizes that it has the new changes. Now this guy says, okay, I'm ready to commit, right? I'm ready to commit. So now he does the next thing that he will do is that he will commit the changes and push, right? So commit. Once he did the commit, the next thing is gonna be push. So you'll push it. Once the push is done, the next thing is gonna be create pull request. Okay, so now what's gonna happen is that once he's happy with these changes, the first thing he's gonna do commit, and you guys already have two ways to commit. One is, you know, you have the code, you have the command. The other one is gonna be directly from IntelliJ. So then he can do a push. Once the push is done, he can go back to the repository and create a pull request, right? When you create a pull request, now he's saying all the differences, only the differences, right? So whatever changes that he add is ready to push to the remote master. It's ready to push to the remote master. So these pull request needs to be approved by someone. So let's say somebody approves that change. So let's say if it's approved, so if it's approved only, then the changes goes in here. And then if it's not approved, then whoever is the person who's committing these changes. So let's say I'll go not approved, or maybe like, okay, it's called change request actually. So usually like whoever reviewing it, they will request some changes on your repository. So let's say somebody was reviewing and they said, no, I think I'm not happy with the changes that you made. Can you fix it? And then you're gonna go back and fix, and then it will go through the same cycle until the approval. So you'll continue to fix and hear about the suggestion until you have an approval. So now that approval is done, and it will merge, right? So only after the merge, these changes will appear here. So let's say, you know, let me just go ahead and write it here. So only after the merge, all the changes that you supposed to have is added to this specific remote master. So now if you go back, I hope you understood like the idea here for a single person is A. So we just finished with A here, okay? So let me just go ahead and symbolize that so that way we know that A is done. So this was for the A, okay? So this color is for A, and then we'll have another color. So now remember, A took the code, basically he had a local master. From there he made an identical copy with a new name. He added all the changes, committed, and then his changes was approved by somebody, and then it was merged. Now B has also local master. Okay, so now I'm not gonna write it again because it's gonna be same exact process. I'm gonna use a different color in this case. So B is orange, okay? So B has access to the GitHub as well. And then he also have a local master just like this, okay? So now when the changes merge from A, now you can see the difference is that it's no longer the same. His local is no longer the same as the remote master, okay? So that means his local is behind from remote master. Agree or disagree? You guys are with me, right? Because it's going to be a lot more
Yes.
that I have to talk about. Okay.
Yeah,
So
agree.
now, yeah. So now that you know that B's local master is different, B can do a pool, right? And it's git pool, right? So let me just write that comment here. So once the B does git pool, and it will take only the delta, again, it will only take the differences between this and this and push it back to, it will make it updated. So now remember earlier, we merged a PR, right? And now if I go back to my IntelliJ, I can say I want to pull that change. Okay, so you guys can see what will happen, because right now I'm in my master and it's my local master. I cannot possibly have the changes that we merged earlier because it came from, I believe, Sonia's branch, right? So now I can say I want to pull that change. I'm still on the master. Before I start working on it, I can say I want to make the change. You see origin master, which is remote master, and it will go ahead and see it says 4 file was updated and we pulled all the changes for you. Okay, so if I go back and click more details, it will tell me what happened. You see Marjorie Tor. So she had all 6 by Sonia was now pulled into my local master. So my local master has all the changes that I pulled it from here. So time to time at work, what's going to happen is that if you, let's say, if you're not on a different branch and you're on local master, you haven't made any changes, but you do want other people's changes, you can do git pull time to time and you continue to get other people's changes. Maybe you're not active on writing code, but maybe B, C, and D are writing the code. Then you can keep pulling the changes and still have working, code to maybe having new tests being added, and you can actually take the benefit of new tests. But most importantly, if B was supposed to, work on a new feature, now he has up-to-date branch and he can do the same exact cycle. So now let's say the other scenario where B does not have local branch updated and he created his branch. So now you can see that this branch is missing few changes. Okay, these changes that we just pulled in is missing on his branch. So not only is local, but also in the feature branch that he created. Now when he tries to push these changes to the master, what's going to happen is that GitHub automatically will tell him that, hey, I know you want to change or you want to push your changes to the master, but seems like your repository is your branch is behind. It will know and it will tell him. He can go ahead and make the pool again. You see, so even on his own branch, he can do a pool and it will pull the changes into in his branch without any extra work. Now, what happens if he makes the changes into the exact file, exact line of code, right? So if that is the case, GitHub cannot automatically solve your problem, right? If the changes has done into the exact location, exact file, then GitHub will say, conflict, your branch is not allowed to merge. It'll stop it right there because now you're going to erase other people's, code. So in that case, you have a choice. You can go back to the earlier Stone Age way to solve the problem, which is you save your changes somewhere else and then update your branch, create the branch, and then you add your changes back. Okay, that is one option, which is a very low tech option. There is a better option that GitHub provides, and that's actually the last thing that about GitHub I will teach today, and then we're done. But that is called merge conflict fix. So you'll probably hear that a lot. Whenever you have merge conflict, you have to fix it before you can have somebody review. So let's say you don't know how to fix merge conflict through GitHub and you're very scared about it. You can do low tech situation where you take all of your changes, differences, and you save it somewhere, you know, in a notepad or whatever's the case. And then you go back to your master and you update your master from the remote master. Once you update it, you create a new branch again, and now you can apply your changes. And after you apply your changes, just hope that nobody else, you know, pushes their changes, which is related to your change. If it's not related to your change, then GitHub automatically will fix the issue that you're going to be facing. So, and I'll show you guys the conflict fixing commands that GitHub provides. So now let's say, so that's what's happening here. So now let's say by the time, so let's say B already solved his problem. He did the pull and he's now ready to create the branch. But then in the meantime, C already pushed the code. C already went ahead and did his push, okay? He, remember, he also had his local master. Maybe he did the pull and he made the change. Now B wasn't fast enough to make the change. So when the time came for B to do the same exact push, GitHub is notifying him, hey, your branch is not up to date with master because master was updated again by this guy. Okay, before B. So B somehow in between now, like first this guy kind of went and made the change and he had to pull and he had to do all these things all over again. And now that he took one day to make his changes and maybe add his test, whatever is the case, maybe it took a little bit of time to write his code, C already had the changes and pushed. So now if the B tried to merge his changes, what's going to happen is that GitHub will automatically say that, okay, hey, your branch is behind because we have a new code in the remote master. Let me fix it for you. And it will give you an option. And you can click on it and it will fix it for you automatically, and that there's nothing needs to be done. Now, if you still have the problem where C added some new code into the exact file and exact line number, and then GitHub will say, oh, I'll leave it up to you. This requires your attention, right? So now GitHub will say, I cannot fix this for you, right? So now you can do the low tech situation to get that fixed. That is called conflict fix or merge conflict fix, right? So that is the low tech. What is the high tech way of doing it? So if the C and B is creating all these issues, so the high tech way would be, these are the two commands. Let me just write them down first, and then I will explain what we will do. So one of the command is git stash to save it, right? STA. How do I spell this stash? STA. Stash. I believe this is the way the spelling is. This is actually a command, so spelling mistake will probably create a problem. So you make sure that the spelling is correct. Don't quote me on the spelling. Now, git stash command will ask you to say, okay, give me a file name, temporary file name. So temp name, right? Temporary file name. What's git stash is doing is that it's saying all the changes that you made, like all of your changes from here. So let's say your branch is up to date and is no longer same, and you have that merge conflict. Git stash will take those changes, okay? Only the changes, okay? And it will save it under this file, okay? It will save it under this file and leave it locally, right? So in your computer somewhere, it will save it under this file. So now, and it will take it off from your branch, right? So all the changes that you made will be gone and it will be saved into this file. Now, what you can do, you can here with this branch. So basically this branch, now that this branch is free and there is no changes of your change, basically your own change, you can merge this guy into this, right? So what you can do, you can say, this is going to get a little bit more confusing, but just bear with me. So you can say all the new changes from here, you like to merge into your branch. Okay, so this is after you took all the changes to the temporary file, because otherwise you cannot do that, right? You cannot merge it because it will say, oh, seems like you made the changes, so I cannot do it. So now with the so now what you can do, you can actually pull the changes from the remote and put it into your branch. Now that you made your branch up to date with the remote, you can apply your changes back from this file back to your thing, right? So now you can say the next command is going to be git on stash. And then again, the file that you change it to, so temp file name. Okay, so now you can take that changes back to your branch because you're freed, right? You do not have any more violation left, right? You're pretty much, you did your stuff correctly and no changes is being, okay, so let me just create that error. It will help, right? This is 1, this is 2, so maybe I'll label them. It's a 2-step process, guys. And now tell me what is the difference between this and your low tech solution that we talked about earlier, where you save the changes yourself and then apply. What is the difference between these and the low tech solution? Just think a little bit more critical. Don't give me basic answer. What is something that is different, or if there is any difference, or was there any difference at all, or there is no difference? All right, come on, guys, think. So again, let me ask you the question with more details, right? B is trying to merge. As soon as he came at that point, made the changes and wants to create a pull request, it says, nope, I can't. There is, no, actually the error message is gonna come here. When the pull request is approved and he wants to merge, he clicks on merge and it says, nope, your branch is behind by this many commits, right? So it's going to say your branch is behind by 2 commits. Maybe somebody else, C already pushed 2 commits in the meantime, using the same, process. And now you're saying, oh, okay, so what do I do with my changes? C already made the changes and it's creating problem for me. You have ways to solve this problem. One was the low key. We're talking about the low tech solution where you feel like this is way too complicated. You went and took, your code, basically, what changes that you made it here, exactly what changes, and it's not too much, right? It's maybe like few lines of code. You copied it, you pasted somewhere, you then erased all the changes, you still have to merge the master into your branch. So you still have to do this command where you will merge the remote master into this branch so you can pull this guy's change. Once you're up to date, your branch is identical, then you paste all the changes that you actually took off earlier and you add it to your branch. And now you are able to merge, right? It's GitHub doesn't give you a problem. It says, okay, your branch is up to date and you're good to go. That was the manual way. You yourself save the changes, you know exactly what changes you have and things like that. Now, this way, the difference is that this way is more seamless because the file is being created automatically. And then when you're done, it will automatically apply for you. So you don't have to go back and forth and say, okay, this file I added this line, this file I added that line. You don't have to do that all the thinking. It will do it for you automatically. But most importantly, if you made a lot of changes, so let's say you wrote an entire test case, which involves writing 3 to 4 pages worth of code, because there was a lot of step definition. It'll be tough for you to copy everything and put it separate and then bring it back personally, because now you have to know exactly where you have to put this code. So when you do git stash, it will remember where the changes were. And then when you unstash it, it will automatically put it into the appropriate places. So that's the difference, where you're basically making your life much, much easier. So if you do start, let's say you're starting in a team, and you feel like, you know what, I can go with the low key solution, maybe the low tech solution initially, because I just don't want to push my code. Yeah, that's totally fine. But then this will be your ultimate way to learn. So now you can say, wait a minute, can I do all of these in IntelliJ? Right? Is that a question, or you guys are fine? You guys know, you know, or everybody will learn the commands here. Then I can give you guys the commands. And obviously I gave you the commands. These are the commands, the real commands. Actually, this is called, when you do git merge, you're gonna say git merge, and then you have to say remote/master, and that's it. That's how the commands work. So is there anybody with a question where they want to see this in action in IntelliJ?
Yes, I'm stuck on that.
Okay, good. At least somebody's interested. Okay, so now if let's say this is the branch, right? Let me go back to a previous older branch. Okay, this is my older branch because I already pushed the changes. I know, and I also have 10 more branches over the last, maybe, I don't know, 6-7 months. So now I'm going to go back to this branch. Remember, this branch is not up to date with the master, because after this branch was merged, there is changes that we just applied earlier in this class. So I know there is changes in the master that is this specific branch is not up to date with. So now let's say the first easy problem is, let's say, you know, the changes were not the same exact file and same exact location. So the easy fix will be just merge the master, remote master, into this branch, which is, you know, as you can see, this is my branch right there. And that's it, and I'll be fine, right? So I'll do that. That's the first solution. So what I can do is I'm going to click on git. I'm going to click on merge. Okay. Once I click on merge, it says, okay, what do you want to merge? I don't want to merge master because this master is local. So I will click on this and I'm going to say I'm on origin master. Remember? So origin master is this guy. So all the changes from C went to this branch. And now I will click on merge and it will say, look, I brought 4 file was updated and I brought all the changes into your you know, branch. So whoever made the changes earlier today and we pushed, all the changes are now here. Now that these changes are here, my branch is up to date, but it's locally up to date, right? It's not up to date here. So now I can actually push my branch and say, okay, look, I'm gonna, now that I made the changes, I'm gonna go ahead and push it. Okay, see, it's containing all the changes from the previous person, right? All the changes that previous people did, and it will go ahead and push. So once I do the push, I can now go back and see my changes are right here. Let's see. Okay, it will probably be under the branch because this branch was already merged at some point. So I gotta find the branch, which is, the branch name is third test. Okay, so I'm gonna go into the third test branch right there, and you can see it will say this branch is up to date with master, blah, 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 blah. Okay, no, it's just up to date with master. So now it says it's identical to master. That's what we wanted to see. And we don't have any conflict. This was the easy fix when you have situation where your branch is behind. So in this diagram, if I go back to the diagram, what we did is that just now, our branch, we looked at it and we saw that it was behind before even writing a pull request. We then merged this branch into this. It pulled all the changes to this one, and now we are good and we can actually continue with this process to create a new pull request and ultimately have that pull request merged. The other one were git stash and unstash. So let's say your changes was the issue. You can actually have git stash and unstash is here. Okay, let's see, where is this? I think the option comes in when you, oh, there you go. Okay, so stash to shelf, stash changes, you know, so unstash changes. So the first thing you'll do, you'll say git stash changes, and you say, okay, do you want to save the stash and give me some sort of message? The message will be like for you to remember in the future, because you might save more than one changes over the, you know, your lifespan of working in the team. So you want to give it a nice message once you're done. Okay, this is a test, for example, and done. I stashed my change, and now I can just go ahead and do git git pull, sorry, not push. I can now bring back all the changes that I need from master. As you can see, I'll have to choose the branch, origin master pool. All the changes came. Now I can say, okay, now I will apply back my changes that I, did the stash. So before it was a stash, now I'm going to say unstash. And now unstash, it will say what, see which one you want to unstash. Notice what we wrote. This is a test. I can go ahead and press on that and apply my changes. So first, all the changes went missing, went to a different file, saved. I made my branch up to date with master, and then I have reapplied my changes, just like what we would do manually ourselves, create a file and do all that crazy stuff, when you can actually just go ahead and do it. It's a feature from GitHub itself. So now, merge conflict fix. There's an interview question is, how do you fix merge conflict? Conflict happens when this guy, let's say A is working on his branch and he's ready to merge, but then C already pushed some changes because this thing is no longer same because A and B working at the same time, they took exact copy of the remote master. So now C already updated the remote master and A tried to update and it says, oh, you're behind and there's a conflict. So that's when you're gonna do git stash command to take all the delta, all the changes to a new file and save it. And then once you then do a git merge, which is going to take all the changes and push it into your branch, then you can reapply the changes, which is unstash, to your branch, and now you're good to go. This is how you resolve merge conflict. So that is one of the options that you have in order to answer an interview questions. The other one would be like, oh, there is a, if it's easy enough, if it's not a lot of code, what I will do, I'll just copy my code, put it into a notepad, update my branch, and after that, I will reapply my change and then push, right? So that is not an impressive answer, but it essentially is same thing. It's just that this thing actually does a little bit more intelligent work for you versus you. Like if you do it yourself, it's going to be tedious. You have to think about where the changes are. You have to think about exactly which line and all of that stuff. But if you use the command, you don't have to, right? And again, command also works, right? So if you go to terminal and you can actually write all these commands, git status to see what changes I made, git pull, right? So all these commands that we mentioned, we can actually go ahead and use them here as well in your terminal. Whether you're a Windows person or whether you are using Mac, it's all same because IntelliJ comes with the terminal. Now, if you feel like, no, this is, again, the commands, I'll learn it later, I'm good with this, then you're still fine. Just know that this is available to you and it's easy and it's not crazy, right? It's not something that you should be afraid of. Again, as a developer, you shouldn't be afraid of GitHub. You should be more happy with the GitHub. That actually completes the entire GitHub situation, right? When you first join a company and they give you this link, the first thing you have to do, not to go into the branches and stuff like that, you have to make sure this branch is in your computer because your computer is empty at that point, right? You have to set this up. So you'll click on code and you'll take HTTPS link in order to clone that repository. Now, if you're in a commercial environment, you're using Git, enterprise, then you cannot do HTTPS because it will say HTTPS is not secure. Then even though it's secure, right? HTTPS is probably more secure than HTTP, but it will say it's not secure enough. They require you to do SSH. When you do SSH, there is a different process of, cloning the repository. But why do you bother with all these problems if you can have Git desktop, right? So download Git desktop, open it and say which branch you want. You just have to provide the link to that branch and it will be easier instead of using the terminal. So you can actually use Git desktop to get all of the related changes. Not only that you can use Git desktop, this is the other way, right? This is a second way for you to do the same exact thing that we talked about earlier. Now let's say IntelliJ, you are fine with it and everything, but you want to do a bit more. You can do exactly that, everything that we did with Git, push, commit, Marge, rebase, stash, unstash also in your Git desktop tool. Okay, so in this Git desktop, you can do exactly what we were able to do. It's just going to be a little bit different, right? Where you see, you select your branch, you see, once you have that branch, you go into your branch, you make changes, you can create a pull request directly here instead of going into the web. So there are a few extra features that Git desktop has, but ultimately it's the same thing. If you're using Visual Studio, so notice how integrated Git is with the IntelliJ, but let's say your company says use VS Code, which is another IntelliJ. It's going to be lookalike, IntelliJ lookalike. It's not going to be a huge difference. And now you can actually configure that into VS Code. So if you do have VS Code, you can click on open and you can start to do the same thing. Like all these commands are going to be available to you on the clicking rather than typing, but you can actually type them, right? So if you feel like, okay, you're more comfortable with the commands, you can actually find one individual commands at a time in Google, right? So let's say git, okay, let's say push code command in Git, right? And now it gives you maybe, okay, let me see if I can find the easiest possible way, right? So it kind of gives you everything that we talked about: create a new repository, open Git bash. So this is for Windows, right? So go to the Git bash and blah blah. So this is not only that it's giving you how to push, but it's also telling you how to create. So you don't need all of this access information because you already have the repository set up. So you'll be confused and you'll end up following these steps. And when you go to the 5th step, you already have a brand new branch with everything, and it's just not required. So you better off following a forum, or where they have all of these noted one step at a time. So as you can see, git push, but you cannot just push before you do git git commit, right? So that's why I did write you guys all the steps earlier right here, what you will need. First day at work, you're going to clone the repository using clone, or you can clone the repository using the GitHub desktop. All it requires is a URL, and that's it. And once that is done, you create yourself a new branch. Once you create the new branch, you make all the changes that you like. Once you make the change, you do git status, and then you can start to add all of your changes. Once the changes were added, you can do the git push and create a pull request for you too, for somebody to review and merge. Okay. Now, if you don't practice it, you're not going to know it. So the last class video is really, really, really important, because today's class, I didn't teach you guys exactly what I taught last class. It's not identical. It's not the same. And it's because all that talking that I did in the beginning, all the diagram and things like that I added here, it is just to help you understand the merge conflict and how do we fix the merge conflict. But before that, the last class, you learned how to push and pull if you're in the perfect world. If nothing has, if nothing changes, everything was happy, 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 that's what's going to happen, black and white, there is no gray area, then the previous video is something that you'll follow. But yes, there will be that gray area where you cannot push anymore because B or C or D, whoever these persons are, they made their changes, they updated the repository, and now you have to make sure that you do your part, right? They will say, hey, can you fix your conflict? And they'll tell you, fix your merge conflict before you ask for the approval. And you might have to fix your merge conflict daily basis because somebody's going to push code daily basis, right? And before you know it, you're going to see you're so efficient with it, you're going to be like 1, 2, 3, and then 5 seconds later, your branch is up to date because you learned how to do it using these commands, or maybe using the IntelliJ itself, using stash and unstash. Any question on GitHub before we move on to the next topic? GitHub is officially, I think, done, unless we have more questions. And again, you guys can feel free to go back to the videos. I think we did enough with GitHub because, again, these is the only commands that you'll be needing at work. And not a whole lot about GitHub that I can teach you, right? It's just a, version control tool. It allows you to go back in time if you need to. It allows you to, know what changes you made. It allows you to see the problems within your branch. If you're pushing something, if you're overwriting somebody else's code, everybody get to review your changes. They get to see what changes that you push. And most importantly, they can actually see how much contribution you're making, like they can see who is the person is making the highest contribution. So if I go into Collaborator, I'm gonna do authentication because this is the same exact GitHub account that I use for one of the company that I work for. So they require for me to use, let's see, two-factor authentication, right? 174383. So two-factor authentication is required. But anyway, let's say I go in here. I can actually now see who made the changes and things like that. I can remove people that is not supposed to be in this branch, and I can do a whole bunch of things, right? I can even run my test directly in GitHub, right? Using Git action. I can create a new machine, virtual machine in Git, and I can say I want to run it on Linux. I want to run it. Where do I want to run my test, right? I can actually say, I want to create a EC2. EC2 is basically, it will just create a virtual computer for me in somewhere in the Amazon cloud, and then it will run my test into that computer at command, at will. So every time I say run my test, it will first create a computer, then it will run your test. So it is that, that's how it works in cloud computing side, right? On the cloud CI/CD side. So we'll talk about that a little bit, why CI/CD is almost necessary, maybe like essential for your automated test, right? And there is another topic about that, but just know that it's not just pulling and pushing, but it's a lot more. Now, Git action is something new that came out maybe like a couple of years ago. So if they ask you, do you know Git action? And you can perfectly say, nope, I do not, but I know how to use it. And that's it. Git action is basically just, if I go ahead and configure this, and configuration would be to run, let's say, a specific test, all you have to do is click on run, and that's it. And it will run it for you. It will open up the, it will go ahead and create a new computer. It takes maybe seconds. Once the computer is done, it will access the computer. It will add all the dependencies that you need. It will add your GitHub link. It will then pull all your changes. It will do maybe an update, maybe an install, whatever is the case, and then it will run your test. So that's how Git action works. It's basically, we're going to be directly accessing the brain of the computer, whichever computer we're going to create. We can create a Windows, we can create Mac, we can create Linux, but we create Linux because it's, we don't need to see what's happening, right? It doesn't have to have a good UI, but it has to be efficient and fast. And Linux is efficient and fast. So we would use Linux to do this kind of work. But I don't want to talk about this anymore to confuse you. We'll probably talk about that in the future sometime, but like right now, with GitHub, is there any questions? Okay, so I will see you guys giving me pull requests, right? So I know that just one pull request was March. So if I go back in time, let's see. Actually, if I go back in here, I can see whose pull request was March, pull request 12, and it was marked by Sonia. So, she's done. I'm still waiting for the rest of you guys to create a pull request. I think the easiest thing you can do for yourself is go back to the previous video, and you'd be able to do that yourself. Everything is there. If you try to Google, if you try to use YouTube, you may get a little bit more confused because they don't give you exactly what you need. They will talk about, they will look at the bigger picture. They're not looking at what you need at the moment. They will just say, oh, GitHub is this, and they're going to give you the book definitions and so and so. But if you do happen to find other resources that may be, helpful and you're able to save time, feel free to do so. But I would recommend, if you go to the previous video, we did more than once in that video. We did a couple times pushing our code. So So I will expect that PR from you guys, just to validate that you learn how to push code. Therefore, you know how to pull as well, right? Because if you can push it, then you know how to pull it as well. Now, the next, I guess like the next 30 minutes we're gonna spend on the interview side. When you guys come back the next week, we're gonna touch a new topic, and then if we, I think what we're missing, API test, yeah, API test, and the database is the two things that is missing right now. So we'll touch those two. API tests, I'm gonna like really like go real fast because there is, you know, a whole position for API testers, and you don't want to present yourself as an API tester, right? You can say you did just enough, right? You just did 20%. So not everybody's gonna know everything 100%. The other thing is with the database, you will do the same, like, hey, 10, 20, 30%, because your focus is going to be more on Selenium, and that's where your expertise is. So it is totally fine if you know how to do API testing, but you don't have depth knowledge because all you did is running the test, or maybe all you did is writing smaller amount of tests on API side as well as the database side. So we'll talk about those two topics in the next two class, and that is going to be done. That actually completes it. But now I know that we wanted to go in depth with Cucumber a bit more. So we'll do 2 more classes on Cucumber, try to go more deeper, and then we'll be done with this badge. With that said, we also started a new badge. So some of you guys should be able to join that badge if you happen to feel like, okay, you know what, I will go to the market, but I still want to continue the learning, then you can join the new badge. No problem at all. Now, the other thing is, you know what, let's take a 9 minutes break, right? And when we come back, it's going to be 9:20, and we're going to spend 30 minutes, and we'll be done before even 10 for today. I'm going to spend the last 30 minutes on interview questions and try to give you guys a bit more confidence to go out there and put your footstep, you know, because people like, you know, Evelina, you know, Sonia, or even people like Anika, you guys are already 50% of the way. Like, let's say 50% of the way with your communication, right? Meaning, in an interview, it doesn't have to be specifically QA, any interview, right? The HR questions you already should know, right? HR question is like, oh, what kind of work environment are you, looking on your next role, or what kind of work environment, or what is your ideal work environment? And these are cultural fit questions, right? Or they said, okay, tell me a time where you had conflict with somebody and how did you resolve it, right? And you guys kind of have this answer because as you, like, if you ever work in customer service, or if you ever work in people-facing job, you already know the answer. You already know how to handle this kind of questions. So at least 50% of the interview question you'll be able to communicate, and then the rest is going to be in the script, as well as, we're going to talk about each and every single individual interview separately to help you to be successful. So I do have a lot of confidence, at least for this batch, with you guys, because it's like a smaller batch and we have been really, really top of things when it comes about learning. So I feel like if we are hitting the market, all the, 4 of you guys, it shouldn't be really, very long to get us the next opportunity. It's going to be, again, the other thing is that your schedule, your time, and how the interview comes in, because some of you guys will have problems with your existing job and timing, and you just have to be patient, right? So if the timing is the biggest issue, yes, instead of doing, 1 interview per week, you're able to do 1 interview per month, and you found your day off, and then that's the day you doing your interview. That's totally fine. But, it's just going to take a little bit longer than everybody else. So just, be open-minded about this kind of situation. If you are like somebody, let's say Anika at this point, right? She's going out there and she's killing it. She's setting up interview every single day. And now she got 3 interviews for the week. At least I know I have an expectation to get an offer from 1 of them, if it's 3. And, this is based on our previous badges where you have 3 to 4 and that's it, done. Like no, maybe there are a few people where, they take 10 interviews and then they pass, right? It's always like 3 to 4 interviews and we're good to go. There is like, I think like there was like very few in the last 10 years that I realized, how long it takes. This one guy actually took almost like 2 years, right? And he never finished, and it was on site at that time. We used to teach on site and he would never miss the class. But when you come to the class, he's like not really paying attention. He would not do the homework or anything, but he would be always in the class, for sure, right? So we didn't mind. So he would continue to come to class, and somehow everybody else is just literally getting jobs. They join, get a job, and leave. And this guy's still there, next badge, and next badge, and next badge. And then what happened one day is like he goes and talks to one of my students, and who was very close to me, and tells him like, oh yeah, I just just here for the marketing, blah blah, and I don't like jumping from one topic to another topic. I don't like the way the teaching, whatever is the case. So I realized from that conversation is that he didn't like my style of teaching, which prevented him to learn more. But the most important thing was language barrier, right? He had, he had a very heavy accent and his English wasn't that good. But ironically, that was the week, but the week he was talking behind me, that's the week he got an offer. He got a job offer and he had to move to another state. So basically I was setting everything up. I was even like asking him to give me his credit card so I can book him a ticket, and get him like some sort of like vehicle for him to drive for that week. So I did all of that for him and he worked for 1 year. Then he was moved to another location from the same company. He worked for another year, and then he now working for like Department of Building or something. But that's like just an example, right? It's just this guy took 2 years. He wasn't able to, like take what I was giving because his idea of learning is different. Maybe, he was older than me and I was younger and he just didn't like that fact or whatever is the case, right? But at the end, he ended up getting a job, and it just proved him wrong. Like, okay, you see, you could have done this like literally like 18 months ago if you only focus. So he started focusing a little bit when he started seeing left and right, people are just leaving, and every badge is with new people somehow. And but if you, I guess the story to this, the lesson to the story is that as long as you have the patient and you're sticking around, you will at some point get a job. It's just maybe your schedule or maybe the situation that you're going through in your everyday life doesn't allow you to have interview every week. Maybe it's every month, but that just means there's going to be 3 months plus to get a job. But the way you are going to be going, the speed that you're going to be going, I will match that speed, right? So if you happen to go fast, I will go fast. If you happen to go slow, I will go slow. But one thing that I will not do is interfere in your personal life. So once you're out there in the market and somehow you're not bringing an interview, I will follow up and say, hey, how's it going? But I will not say, oh, I need 10 interviews tomorrow, right? And that will not be fair to you, right? So just keep that in mind. If I'm not reaching out and saying, okay, bring me 10, 15 interviews for the month, this is the expectation that I'm setting, right? I am not gonna go and force everybody to set up interview if you really uncomfortable about interview. But one thing that I can say to you guys is that once you do your first interview, you'll be hooked. As soon as you finish your first interview, I would say take it in, even if it's all this anxiety that you have or whatever is the nervousness that you may, because you have no idea how this works, right? So as soon as you do your first interview, you're going to be like, oh, this is it. Okay. And then you're going to be like on 100% right after that. So do not make any decision. Do not go left and right. Don't go out there and start driving cabs or do any other jobs until you do your first interview and then say, okay, nah, this is, this is something that I can do. This is like, you're reaching to the top of the mountain and then you're saying, nah, I don't think I can make it. You're already here and it's time to cash in, right? We're basically ready to cash in on this. And so you cannot really turn back at this point, at this time, guys. That's my advice. So again, 9:30, I'll see you guys, and then we'll do some interview Q&A. You can write some questions, whatever you want to ask during that time, and we'll finish exactly at 10. So I'll see you
I
guys
have
in 10
a-
minutes.
I'm so sorry. I have a quick
Mhm.
question. How do I are there like any tutors like out there for something like this, like where I could get like a personal one-on-one
Mhm.
attention, that sort of thing?
For what? For interview?
No, like for like let's say GitHub or Selenium or Cucumber, like all these things that were like I feel like I'm stuck there and I need somebody
Mhm.
like one-on-one with me. And like I'm
Yeah.
willing to
So
pay
you,
for it. I just want to know where to go. I can't find
yeah.
anybody.
No, but you'll have to reach out, right? So see, the thing is that we're okay to give you extra help if you need, and this is something that we mentioned in the very beginning of starting of this course, right? Where Shantaba is there. He's been a backup instructor from the very beginning here, right? But also like when you reach out and say, okay, this is where I'm having issue, and I need that extra help. If you insist, we're gonna help you. But the thing is that when we do the class, we're not really asking you to do something different. We're just saying, okay, do replicate exactly what I did, right? Exactly what I'm showing you is something that I want you to replicate. So you'll have to actually asking for help will be something that, and this is true for work too, right? You cannot be asking for help unless you tried it yourself, right? So if you didn't try first, and then you can, like, let's say you come back to me and say, okay, this is where I'm stuck. We'll be happy to jump in. I'll actually find time to sit down with you to help you. But if you never tried and you get a tutor or somebody who's going to help you, I think the best, like, obviously you don't want a tutor. You basically want to do self-research because that's as close as possible to what you will do at work, right? So you can YouTube it. There is plenty of videos. And then you are able to move around by doing those research and YouTube it and looking at other instructors and see what kind of help you're getting. That's the right way to do. If you happen to get a tutor like separate, now there will be that disconnect. You may end up, there's going to be two-way situation. One would be like you don't like your tutor because the ideology is not the same or the teaching style is not the same, or you may end up liking your tutor so much that you may end up not focusing here, thinking, oh man, these guys are not giving me exactly what I need. Maybe the tutor is going very, very in depth. Maybe he's going very detailed and you understand, but we don't have the time to spend 2 years in the course, the whole course, right? And that's why we need you guys to do your research and be able to, move around. So if I give you, puzzles, and you should be able to solve it, right? If I can show you something, you should be able to replicate it. And that is the expectation. That is the part of the expectation, right? For the whole course. But yeah, like we'll talk about it. Maybe, you can reach out to me personally and say, okay, look, these are the points, these are the things that I'm weak on. I'll set up some time and we can go over, a few extra classes on that.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem. All right, see you guys at 9:33 now, 3 minutes. So get a 10 minutes break and then we come back and we'll do some Q&A. Everything. So if you feel like that there are some things that you are weak on, do some, study, know what they are. You don't have to go super in depth, but you have to know that, why we use it, where we use it, and some of this, basic question about the tool. And this will just make you very, very somebody who's knowledgeable. But when it comes about the actual interview, you're going to get a lot of help. So initially, talking to a recruiter, just being able to set up the interview, right? So when you do the initial conversation with the recruiter, why do you do that? It's just to set up the interview. It's not an interview. So everything that we have given you, including your resume, is just to help you with the conversation. If the conversation becomes weird and awkward, let's say they are asking you a question like, tell me about yourself, and you can't, that's why we wrote you a sample for tell me about yourself. So you can actually either read it to them or you can actually read it and create your own story about yourself. the idea is that as soon as you set up your first interview, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna then plan out how this is gonna go, what is the, what we can do to make it successful. And this is a few things that we're gonna talk about, and then we try every possible things that we can do from ourselves to get you that position. But your only, responsibility in this process will be just setting up the interview. We set up one interview, we do it, we fail, no problem, do it again, and keep doing it until we get that offer. And not all the offers that you're going to be getting is going to be good, right? So let me just go into Indeed for now. So not all the positions that are out there, right? Let's say you end up getting a job, but then it seems like the boss is going to be somebody who's going to be looking over your shoulder every second. We don't want it. We don't want that kind of job, right? Because if that puts you into a mental situation, it's really not worth it. And the reason why we don't want it is because we have so many other options, right? You're talking to 10, 15 people per day. Obviously, you want to choose the right position. You want to choose the right type of team. And you'll see like the professionalism coming in. You'll see that the email, they're writing you nice emails and welcoming you to the team. And this is where we want to be. And you will also see unprofessional behavior. And these are some of the symptoms where you'll try to back off and say, okay, this position, I don't want it, right? And it's because, even in a commercial environment, or at least even in a large company, why there is this unprofessionalism happens is because there is third party and there is a second party, right? So when a company hires somebody, they could be hiring from third party, they could be hiring from the second party. Now, it's not necessary that second party is going to be nice to you or the third party is going to be nice to you. They might be really pain in the neck. But then the client itself, let's say in this case, you work for NASA, right? But then NASA hired another company, right? At this point, the other company's name is Bastion Technologies. So now you work for Bastion Technologies, but then you work in a NASA project. The treatment from NASA is going to be super nice, right? Because they have their standard. But then the treatment from Bastion may not be the same, equivalence, right? Where you may get Bastion where the managers, they want to know your daily basis, what kind of activities they are doing. They might be a little bit more on the micromanagement side. But sometimes it's vice versa. It's really something that I cannot tell you for sure this company is this, right? And it's also not company specific. It's all about your boss, right? Whoever you're going to be working with, and your team. So in the interview, we will know for sure if that's going to be pain in the neck or if it's going to be something really, really welcoming to you. And then I will give you my suggestion. I'll say, okay, let's keep that on hand. It's on the table. Offer is on the table. Let's accept it. But we still have 2 weeks to get something else. So in that 2 weeks, we're going to look for other positions, and then we make a decision. So we're going to do that, together as a team. But you have to make sure one thing is that you do your part, but also you have to coordinate with me. You don't want to give me a surprise and say, okay, all of a sudden, okay, I can't do this because I'm not getting enough help, right? And that's where we have that disconnect where, if you don't need the help or if you don't reach out, we assume that you don't need the help, period, right? If you do reach out and say, okay, I need 2 hours on this day for this specific topic, we will make the time eventually. It might not be the same exact day, but we will make up that time to make sure that you get that help. But also, don't have unreasonable requests. Like, let's say we covered the GitHub already, and then now you want to do the same class over again and one-on-one. It's just unreasonable because, it's not going to be anything different. It's going to be the same thing. So your research is also going to help. If you do put the time, you will realize it's all about time. It's all about time. If you put 2 hours versus 4 hours, you'll see the difference. If you spend 4 hours, you sometime will come back with less questions because you already faced the problem, you already did your research, and you then were able to solve it yourself. So let's look at some of the position with all of that said to you to make sure that, you get some sort of good expectation with the hourly rate and all of that. So this is a part-time hardware QA supporting NASA, right? So this is more on the hardware. So we're not looking for hardware testing, honestly. There will be positions like testing the, for the car's dash, like the dashboard, where you can switch between different type of settings and play music and things like that. Even those positions, we're not looking for those because it's like a bit more complex. It's nothing to do with software. You'll have to work with the hardware, where maybe on your desk you'll have the actual car dash and you'll just scroll through things and test it, right? So maybe, and those positions are not very relevant to the position all over the world, so you'll have less experience. Even if you come out, you'll end up getting nothing in terms of experience. So this one, let's look at this one, remote. So again, 80 to 90% positions are remote, but for those who's willing to go in the office, you probably have a better shot because, if you say, okay, I'm fine with the office, you'll probably get the offers, compared to those who doesn't want to go to the office. As you can see, this one, QA analyst. We already talked about what QA analyst means. It just means that you're gonna be doing manual testing, with the exception of some automation, maybe 10-15%. You're getting 66 hourly contract for this position. What they're looking for is that, like manual testing, there's nothing that here that we haven't done. Just read this for me and tell me what we haven't done. Create a test plan, test scenario, test script, and procedures, right? We already talked about all of that. Test bed configuration and test execution. Test execution is just basically running the test. Test bed is just the test data and all of that. Being able to set up on your side, which is your servers, like QA environments and all of that, that will be done for you by your lead. Identify and report software defects using bug tracking systems such as Jira. So if you know Jira, you probably know most of the bug tracking tools that are out there. The similarities are more than differences in these kind of tools. These are management tools, okay? Monitor bug resolution effort and track its completeness. So if you opened a bug, you have to follow up time to time and say, hey, is it fixed? So you can actually retest it. That is just monitoring and waiting until there is a resolution, and then you will test it and then you will close that bug, right? So that is this line. Manage software bug cycle. We already talked about, is the same thing. You will plan, schedule in accordance to project scope and delivery date. So if you do have a release coming up, you'll plan what kind of tests you'll be running for that release. So maybe regression, smoke, and you can probably run all of the test cases that you have as part of the release. But again, the decision will be coming collectively throughout the whole team. So your team will make the decision, not just you, right? You need to have a lot of product knowledge to make this decision, this specific line. We're seeking a QA who's passionate about managing, improving product quality and wants to make positive impact on emerging team. The ideal candidate is someone who has worked in a similar role within the technology or social media industry. So one thing in an interview they're going to look out for is that you're not just somebody, oh, I know how to write test case. No, they want to see who you are, what kind of thinking that you're doing. What kind of makes a difference between another tester versus you, right? What is the difference? What is some of the positive differences, right? So that's when you want to speed out and say, look, when it comes out about QA, I really, really care about the product because I know that I'm the last person who's using the product before the customer is using, and I have all the opportunity to prevent any sort of disaster being introduced to the end user, and I don't want my end user suffering. So I will do everything that I can to find that bug. I will write test case. I'll think critically. I will also think behalf of my end user to make sure that all of their workflow is fulfilled and passing order. So these kind of conversation doesn't require technical knowledge, right? So that's why we had to give you a lot of overall idea about the QA and tell you a little bit about best practices and best thing that we can do as a QA. These things that you will say in a team, whenever they ask you questions like, oh, tell me something that you did that you're proud of in your team, right? Now they are saying, here's an opportunity to impress us, right? You shouldn't be like, oh, damn, why are they asking these questions? Like, you cannot possibly think that, extra question is to, basically stop you there, and that's it, like just to make you fail. It's not that the reason. The reason they ask you questions in an interview is that they want to hear what they want to hear so they can make a decision to hire you, right? And everybody, like even I go on an interview with my team and we're talking to a candidate and I'm just looking for some keywords. I'm just looking for, like, trust me, I do not look at the resume and I see like it's fake, whatever is the case. I don't go crazy about, like, you know, if he's lying on what's on the resume. As long as he knows what he's talking about, I will give my okay to hire that person. And I did that numbers of times over the years when I made the hiring decision. It's not about, you know, it's not about like somebody coming in and he has everything intact. It's about like the person itself, and you can tell that that person is going to do a lot of hard work. The other thing that I found out over the years is that people that are brand new, like just like yourself, when you did this crash course or you did this boot camp and you go out there and working, somehow you do a lot of work than the people who worked in this industry for 6, 7, or 8 years. Somehow you are able to get recognized by the team. Somehow you're able to get a promotion and things like that. And it's because the hungerness, it's because you don't know what is acceptable. You don't know what is the baseline. You don't know exactly what is normal, all right? For those who worked for 7, 8, 9 years, they already know what is normal. They already know what is okay, what is not okay. So for you, when you join a team, you will end up probably doing a little bit more work because thinking like, oh no, yesterday I only spent time on meetings. I didn't do anything, so I have to do it, all right? Versus somebody who has 10, 15 years of experience, they're gonna say, yesterday was a meeting. I'll wait until they come back and tell me I didn't do anything, right? And he'll be able to defend himself. But maybe you're not ready to defend yourself because you feel like, you know, you need to go out there and do something, then you'll do it, right? And that's why somehow people with a fresh mind in QA do better. You know, they do better than people with years of experience. And that is one of the leading cause for many companies out there to rotate the QA. So you'll see like there are companies where you work for the company for 1.5 years and you did incredible job, but somehow they're letting you go to hire somebody brand new who has no idea about the product. And that's the rotation that happens on some of the companies where that rotation, no matter what, will happen, you know, with some exceptions, of course. So if you are that person who's like incredible and they're like, okay, no, we cannot rotate this person, we'll keep them, and then we'll rotate the remaining QA engineers, then they will do it. But the whole reason behind rotating QA engineers is that fresh mind comes in and they happen to make the product better and better and better. As a QA, we are able to improve the product, but we cannot possibly make the product worst. Because why? Because the product is being developed by developers. We can only improve it by finding bugs. It was already, you know, it's developed and everything, right? It's just there. If we can find the bugs, obviously we're improving, right? But we cannot just go and mess up their code and introduce bug in the system. If you really think about it. So as a QA, just keep in mind, you know, as a fresher, you will probably do a better job than anybody. On my first project, I used to write 15 to 20 test cases, automation, right? 15 to 20. And then I had coworkers that has a leading role, that has a QA engineering role, where they would write 1 or 2 per day. And I just didn't know what is normal. I just didn't know really what is the acceptable number on the test cases that I need to do. So I just did as many as I can throughout my day. And I'll tell you the truth behind how much time I spent. I would finish my meeting at 9:15 and get a coffee and then work all the way before the lunch. So like maybe, you know, by 1 o'clock, I already have 10, 15 test cases done. And I would not do the work rest of the day, because now rest of the day I will spend time on meetings and then going out there with coworkers and hanging out. And that was like my day, right? And it was still somehow everybody realized, okay, this guy's doing an incredible job, and they wanted to give me a raise and all of that, but I decided to move on to California with a different role. But like I said, you know, as a fresher, you will probably do a better job than those who are not. There are other examples that over the years, there's this one specific student. He actually sends me time to time. He usually sends me a screenshot of his manager reaching out to him saying, "Wow, this is amazing what you did, what you done." Sometimes he send me his yearly review, and it's just a validation for me to see and say, okay, well, people that actually have the QA basically comes within, right? Within the first couple of months, you'll realize it. As long as you take the responsibility, you will be fine. It's more about responsibility. You have to think like that's your own business, right? You care about it. It has to come from your heart when it comes about these bugs, right? So what will happen probably, you go on your first release and you'll see because of you, there's few bugs came back. You're going to be sad on the first release, but the next release, you're going to be fine. Because now you have to do a little bit more extra because whatever you did, it wasn't enough. And that's why the bugs got slipped through your radar. And you'll probably be fine the next release. So every release that will happen, like maybe weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, you will just continue to get feedback. So if you have a release and then your manager comes back and say, wow, there is no bug, right? We released it and there is no bug. And you'll say, oh, wow, okay, that's great. And you'll keep up that work, right? But the likelihood of having a bug in the system after release is almost like 50-50, right? Because you cannot possibly find all of the bugs, right? Sometimes users will find the bug and then tell you, and then you just look at it and you learned, and then the next release you become better and better and better. So even the users will come and help you to make yourself more better, and have a good eyes for a QA, somebody who can find bugs, and easily, right, without having to do a lot of test cases or whatever is the case. But one thing that I'll tell you, if you spend the time, there is no way you'll miss a bug. If you spend the time, if you like rush through things, then you will miss bugs, period. If you have the 8 hours and if you spend like half of the day before the release, you'll probably be able to spot most of the bugs that in the system. So take it easy, take it slow. But if you rush through things, especially in QA, you're probably not gonna be a good QA. What is the I guess recently there was an interview, right, where the manager started describing, we want somebody this, we want somebody that, we want somebody not only coming in, but and this is how it started, right? So we go on the interview and then the guy's like, okay, let me tell you a little bit about the project. So he goes, spends like 2 minutes on the project and give us an idea. Then he goes like, let me tell you about what we want in this person, the next, who we're looking for at this point. I'm like, okay, that's great. So then he goes and says, we want somebody not only just coming in and writing test cases and done, but we want recommendation. We want to see that person actually think outside of the box and finding more bugs, or at least thinking more behalf of the user and making it more and more better in terms of user friendliness of the application. Thinks about the process and be able to improve if there is a need. Think about the tool, suggest new tools and all of that stuff, right? And I'm thinking like, oh, wow, okay, that's generally all of the team, or at least the managers, will talk about, right? They want somebody different. They don't want somebody who's going to go and say a test case is this, definition of the test case. They don't want somebody who's going to come and say, okay, I can write a test plan. You can write a test plan, you can write a test case, you can write a test scenario, but you still may not be a good QA, right? And the possibility is because you're rushing through things. You're not thinking how the user will do their part to use the application and what kind of possibilities there are, and how you should be testing it, right? So deep thinking, critical thinking, having the patience to read, because there are times where you look at the requirement and it's long, right? And you'll be like, oh man, I'm just gonna go to the application. I'm just gonna click. If there's nothing, then we're good to go, right? And that's where you will miss out all of your bugs. You got to read one line at a time and say, okay, is this what's happening on the application? and then go and check. And that's one of the things, like having the patient is probably the most important thing. You'll be the reader. You'll, again, it's all about the expected result versus actual. So you'll have to read and say, is this the application is doing the same? You know, whenever you want to visualize what's going to be your role, think like a home inspector, somebody who goes and have a checklist on their board, and they go around and they check things. Now, some things that they're checking, okay, let's just ask you guys a question. That home inspector, the checkboxes that he has to check, where are these checkboxes coming from, or the list coming from? Do you guys know? You guys can still hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So who determines what are the checkboxes? So imagine, let's say you hired an inspector and he goes and he's like, oh, I'm looking for 4-story building and this is only 1 story. And you're saying, no, that's not 4-story, that should be 1 story. You know, but so then who like give him the specification, right? And so that way he can create his checklist.
Client or the and who wants to buy the house, the owner.
Yeah, so it could be the owner who originally requested how the house should be built, and now he's providing the blueprint from the architect, and he's probably giving him the list of things that he wants him to check. So now the inspector will look at the blueprint, inspector will look at the you know, all of the requirements the homeowner had and create his checklist, but also he will go by based off of the local, you know, county, or as well as the, you know, area rules and regulation for some of the you know, some of the features that he'll be looking into the house. So that means if we are talking about the application, we'll also have to use some of our experiences with the application. So how the text box should be. If the text box doesn't look good, but then it is doing everything fine, it doesn't look good, then yes, we're going to say, okay, nope, this check doesn't pass. The checkbox clearly is, you know, not something that we were expecting. It should be different color, whatever is the case. So we'll also, when we as a QA create that, you know, checklist, that checklist is called what? What document do we call that?
Requirement.
Just like the home inspector. Requirement is your checklist. That's probably so remember, home
Okay.
inspector gets a specification, and that is equivalent to requirement, and then you create a checklist. So you're saying, you know, the checklist is the requirement. Anybody else? That's not a good answer.
Acceptance criteria, I mean.
Not a good answer. Anybody else? All right. It's called test case, right? Because, or test scenario, whatever. I mean, either one will be fine. Just know that the difference between test case is detailed, so you can go back and execute however many times as you want, and you know exactly what to expect. And test scenario is just a one line explaining what is happening and what you should be expecting, but not too much details how to get there. So that checklist is going to be our test case, where we'll list out all the item based on the requirement, based on the design document, whatever we are given by the, you know, product owner, and then we will start to execute them, right? To go and check physically to make sure that everything is intact, right? So yeah, guys, that's not a that was not a good you know, response, because, you know, we did this many times. All right, so that's the way. If you really want to compare, like if you ever, let's say you're on an interview and then they want you to talk about your, you know, daily basis, daily rules, daily activities, you can actually think about, because you have to visualize something, right? You can probably think about the home inspector and then translate everything toward like software and your team that you worked in. And it will make total sense. It will actually make sense if you think about it. That's just for me to give you a tip to help you. Now here you can see another position where 66 versus 99. The reason why there is a huge difference in gap with the salary is because if you have a lower experiences, then you'll be falling into the lower salary range and then higher. But the negotiation is something that you will be doing yourself. If you negotiate lower than what we will talk about, and then later maybe you pass the interview, later we'll probably renegotiate that and say we're not okay with the salary, and we'll probably increase by 10 to 15,000 if we can, right? And the way we will do it is very safe way, so you're not going to lose the position because you ask for more money. There is another one, remote jobs, 35 an hour. This is likely a third-party contract. For those for those who's coming from stable position like Amit, right? Or those who has a full-time job, more like career orientated, you don't want this kind of things, right? You don't really want this kind of job. You also don't want this kind of job. What you want probably, you want a full-time job, right? Where you can have the opportunity to learn and grow, but you have a sense that, okay, now I'm okay to, go ahead and leave my existing position and go into this position because I know it's a full-time job, right? But one thing that I can tell you guys is that, if you got a job, there is no guarantee that you're not going to get fired, right? It's just like any other job in the world, right? So it's not like something that I can promise, but I know at least the first 2 months you're not going to get fired. But as soon as they started to see that you don't contribute, you're not in the meeting, you're not even joining, you're late, then you'll probably get fired. The most reason is that you didn't go to the meeting. Most reason is that you didn't do the timesheet. It's nonsense. It's not even related to work itself. Some people get fired. But other than that, the security that you want to think about, there is always a job. That's the security with IT. In the IT side, it's not about like, oh, I got a full-time job, now I'm settled. That's not the sense of security that you'll get. Even with full-time job, there is a rotation, there is changes that takes place, but the security that you will feel and understand is it's going to be, oh yeah, so what if I lose this position? I will get another one within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And that's the sense of security that you will be getting. That's the right expectation that you should have. So keep in mind. So let's look at this one right here. You got 60 to 70 an hour. You can actually, after the interview, you can push it for 70, right? So let's say you agree to 60 lower and you got the job, you passed the interview. As soon as you pass the interview, the recruiter calls you like, oh, congratulations, you got the job. Where do we send the documents and everything so you can start? You're gonna say, hey, everything is good, but I was thinking about the rate that we agreed to because it's not really realistic, because after the interview I realized it's a lot more responsibility, and also the location. I'm in New York and I have higher expenses. I feel like 70 would be a fair number for me to accept the position. Do you think you can review the rate? You're not even saying, I don't want to take the job, I want 70. You're just saying, do you think you can review? So now the guy will give you some honest thought, right? He'll probably in the beginning say, no, I can't. We talked about it. It was the last thing. 60 was the last thing. And you're going to say, well, I saw 70, the range. That's the highest in your range. So I'm looking for the highest right now because I do have another position currently with a possible offer. But most importantly, I think the responsibility makes it difficult for me to accept 60. Do you want to come back to me within a couple hours? Maybe you can talk to, the client, or you can talk to your manager and let me know in 2 hours. Then now the recruiter is going to realize, oh man, he's now going to accept it. He's going to go back 2 hours later. He's going to say, okay, we're going to make it happen at 70. The reason why the recruiters is going to do that in the beginning, they just want you to accept and done, right? But the moment you said, okay, go take your time, don't rush it. It's okay. Take your time and come back to me in like next day or like in 2 hours. Now they're in panic, right? Because they will lose the position if you don't accept it, because the client already has communicated with them to say, okay, this is who we want. The client doesn't know that they're paying you 70. Maybe the client is paying 110. You don't know that. 120. Like some of our like in-house positions, we actually charge the client twice as amount, and we pay you the 50%. That is our way to go because we have expenses. But the most important thing is that these companies, when they do the hiring, they will probably take, 40 to 50% of your hourly rate, and they will give you whatever leftover. So most likely for this position right here, the client is okay to go up to 120, and 130, whatever is the case. So they will charge them 120, 130, and you'll get 70. Still a good deal because remember they're doing a lot of work for you in the background. And they also, the reason why you don't want to think like, oh, somebody's taking my salary, is that these guys had to go out and talk to the client and be able to convince them that, okay, we're going to do the hiring for you, right? And became maybe their vendors or whatever is the case, and you can only get a job through them. So you'll have to get it. But as soon as you get more experience, like maybe like 4 or 5 years of experience, and you feel like you can move around, you can become this guy. You can become this guy yourself. And this is somebody who I am right now, even for me. Like I've never worked full-time jobs anymore because I can be this guy. I have like 4 LLCs open and tell the client, instead of 70, give me 110, 130, 140, whatever is the case, because I am an independent, consulting company and you're hiring me through that company. So now I can charge them as much as these guys. Now I have the benefit of being an owner and being able to, get the desired rate, right? So at some point, and this is something that in IT, you'll see developers and QA, you'll see all of a sudden they're a full-time job, they're working full-time for, let's say, Chase Bank. And now they're coming back with an offer. They go and tell their managers, I'm going to be leaving next month because I want to open up my own consulting. And, if you guys want, you guys can hire me through it and I'll be fine. I just cannot work full-time anymore. I want to be as part of my own thing going on, right? And some of the companies, they do that, especially like, I would say startup companies, they will agree, they will move on. I was able to convert some of the startup companies into this kind of situation in the past, but like Chase Bank, Bank of America, and things like that, they probably will not. They will probably require you to have insurance coverage. So like for me, like I had to go out and get insurance, like up to like $10 million. And if anything happens because of me in the company, they will get $10 million. And insurance is not a lot, right? You probably pay $10 per day for the insurance, or maybe like, depending on your coverage. So like I said, the potential of making money in IT, it's huge, right? And as long as you know how to move around, how to, get yourself out there and like do your part, right? Like it took me 6 years before I even like asked them to help me get a remote jobs, right? I worked on site 6 years in the beginning. Now, because of pandemic, everything is easy. You can work remote from the day one after this course, which is, you guys should be considered as lucky. And I don't know how long this is going to be, like this, but I think it will be at least for the next couple of years where people will get more remote jobs than the on-site. You will not see like on-site jobs, honestly. Like, look at this. Like most of it is remote. You're remote for 70. We got this is on-site, I think. Oh, remote afternoon shift. Data quality, QA, remote, mostly remote jobs, honestly. So you'll be having the luxury of working from home. And you will have plenty of time, but don't play with your first job. That's my request to you guys. Just because you work from home doesn't mean that you're going to leave your computer on and go on the side and just maybe watch a movie in between. That is for me, right? Somebody who has some experience. We went through this already, and we at least I can go and diffuse problems. Like, okay, all of a sudden they give me something difficult, I can do that. But for you guys on the first job, try to impress them. For me, I don't need to impress them. If I impress them, they will give me more work. So for me, I'll just stay as low. I put my head down, because, you know, I have my own consulting company and I'm doing multiple projects for multiple clients. I don't want to get extra work. I'm getting paid for, you know, for what I'm doing. And I don't want promotion either because I'm under my own company, right? I do my own job. So I don't really care about the promotion. For you guys in the beginning on your first job, do not play with it, because what you want to do, you want to focus, you want to look for the promotion, you want to get that you know, feedback from your manager. They should like you, and they should probably look for you during the meeting and say, oh, wait a minute, where is Evelina? We need her in this meeting. We need her. That's the keyword. And that's when you know you made it. That's when you know that you became a subject matter expert in QA. And it will happen within the 6 months, as long as you have the dedication going within a team and company. Once you reach that point, and then you spend another couple of years and you gain more knowledge, you can start to say, okay, I care a little bit less now. I'll just do what I'm asked, and that's it. And you can relax a little bit. You'll be able to, you know, do less and less and less hourly. And you'll have plenty of time to do other things. You can go and have a business on the side. You can have a consulting on the side. I have a student actually created his own school. I'm not gonna name anything, but you know, he reached out very recently. He's like, oh, I'd like to sit down with you and you know, talk about it. And he's like, oh, I'm proud of you that you're able to do it within that short period of time. Like within 2 years of working, he was able to become like an instructor on the Selenium side. And I'm like, wow, that's great. And he's running his own, you know, school somewhere in Jamaica or something. So I said, okay, that's awesome. You know, I'm proud of you, and yeah, hope to meet you up one day. But other than that, think about it. Like, the potential is huge for you guys. You can actually do anything you want to do. You can be like also going out there doing this part-time, what I'm doing right now. You can start with few people, like 2 or 3, and then once you become successful, then you can increase, right? But you have to first make it, right? You have to first like the position. You cannot really sell a product if you don't like the, you know, product. So right now, it's going to be super early for you to say I like it or I dislike it. But as soon as you finish your first 6 months, or at least the first project, you'll be able to tell yourself, okay, no, I really, really enjoy working. And there is plenty of people when they go from different positions. So I had people from airlines. I had people, you know, from, you know, positions like working with, like doing taxi, or working in a bank as a teller, or accounting. This one person had 5 years in accounting, and they made the move, and they're like, oh, this is so much relieving. They have so much time, and it just makes their life in a different quality, because in this kind of position, your life and your quality of life is more important than their task, right? We're there, we're going to do the job, but nobody should be rushing you. So that's one of the reasons, right? QA is not to rush in a team. Either your manager knows that, everybody knows that. So that's why we kind of have a lot of quality, you know, in our life. It kind of like gets almost like you're doing your own business. Nobody's there to like force you to do something that you don't want to do. And you have a lot of, you know, opinion in terms of what to do, what the right thing. You can actually say, I cannot pass this story because I'm not, you know, I don't feel like it's right, you know, and you can say that. That's totally fine. And it's not like you follow the process and you have to come to a conclusion right away. We make the judgment. We are the decision maker of the testings that we will be carrying on. So it is beyond a job. It is beyond a career, because you will feel like a team player. You'll feel like somebody who's making the difference in this world. If you do happen to work in healthcare, you will see how much differences you're making. If let's say you work for Aetna, how many customers do we have in Aetna? And now you get to make a decision on how the customer will be able to, you know, interact with the application. That's just way too many lives you're changing right there. If you work in, let's say, insurance, the same thing. If you work in finance, the same thing. So you get to make more in terms of like the impact on numbers of people compared to any other job. If you work in a coffee shop, you're only making impact on maybe like 500 or 600 customers per day that you're serving. But then if you work in IT where you're developing a product that people use and it's millions of people, then you're making difference in millions of people's world. So just keep in mind, passion. You have to have that at some point. You have to like the job and you have to understand what it gives you. It's not about like going out there and doing, making yourself work to death and proving a point. It's about you having a work-life balance, and no other job so far that I have seen personally has any work-life balance than this specific job. I've been to every position, or at least every type of position that you can think of. Try to name a position, I'll tell you if I worked or not. I mean, my earlier days, but I find that this is more for people who want peace, who don't want to feel like they're working. This is part of their daily life. And it's kind of like, okay, if somebody asks me right now, do you look forward to retirement? I'll say, no, I don't want retirement. This is not invading anything that I would like to do on my daily basis, right? I can still go out. I can go out at any time of the day, literally any time of the day. There are times where I'm driving from PA to New York and it's midday and I'm in a meeting on the phone, and I tell them like, oh, I'm on the phone, guys. I'm actually traveling to New York. So just keep that in mind, and then they understand that. Nobody's gonna be asking the question, why are you traveling right now? You should be office working, And sometimes I tell them like, look, these 2 hours, I'm not gonna be around. 3 p.m. I'm not gonna be around because I'm gonna go to the gym. When I come back, I will work until 7. So if you guys need anything, let me know. That's it. So you get to decide exact hours that you'll be working on. And the concept of time, like, when you join a company where, and I can tell you from experience, if you work for city jobs, they kind of will tell you like, oh, you're stealing time or whatever is that. The concept of time, the hours, it's not there, meaning like, they're not going to say 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and that's it. You can actually shift, you can actually change your hours if you like to. And there will be days where you don't need that 8 hours. You may be working 6 hours, 5 hours. If you're working remote 5 or 6 hours, that's just enough. Nobody's going to say, wait a minute, I saw you online for 5 hours and you're charging us for 8 hours. There is nobody ever so far came up to me like that and said, okay, put 5 hours because I saw you 5 hours. If you're entitled for 40 hours, you're going to put 8 hours, even if you do 2 hours for the day, period. And that's how it happens in IT. And you would probably think, oh, they maybe track the time because this IT is highly sophisticated. Guess what? They don't even track the time. They don't. They do it in purpose not to. But if they want to, they can. There are tools that take snapshot of your desktop every 5 minutes, right? To see what you're doing, and it creates a story for the day. And this extreme situation, they don't want to go to that kind of situation, right? They want their engineers to be peaceful and at least have the right state of mind for them to do what they need to do, right? It's all about being able to deliver the work, and they don't care if you spend 2 hours, they don't care if you spend 1 hour or 2 hours. So that's some idea about the role. And this should excite you to go out there and say, no, I really now want this position. We did the work already for the last 3-4 months. If you do find yourself behind, that is perfectly fine. You can go back to the videos or you can YouTube it. There will be some of the videos that's going to be helpful to you. But know that we're here for you at all times to help you get the job. So we're pretty much there to mentor you and guide you, but some of the knowledge that you missed in the previous classes, you can acquire them by using even third-party videos in YouTube or in Udemy. So that's something that you can, nobody's going to say, okay, why are you using YouTube and things like that. You can do it yourself, but know that we're here at all times to guide you toward a possible position. All the way to until on your first day at the job. Anything is needed. until your first day will be taken care of for you. And you don't have to worry about nothing, right? So just focus on setting up the interview if you go on the market, and that's all you have to focus on. Don't ask me like, oh, but this position, can I do this? No, you will be able to. We're gonna train you on if there's a new technology. And so they're looking for this paperwork. Yeah, don't worry about it. We'll take care of that at the end. It is for us to deal with the background check company, which is a third-party company. And the difference between a regular job where you go through a background check and an IT job and a background check is completely a day and night difference. So we know exactly how to handle them. We know how to make sure that everything is done right, and so that way you can start on your first day at work. With that said, it's 10:21. I think we do go over a little bit. Any questions? And also, like those, I know Sonia, were you ready or something? But I didn't see you guys reaching out for that mock interview. So I assume that you guys need 1 more week, so that's totally fine. We will probably do mock interview on Saturday, early morning before the class for those who are going to be ready. Any questions?
I think last Sunday you scheduled the mock interview, and I think I messaged you. Yeah, I did.
Okay, so I'll reach out to you tomorrow. So we'll get this going. And maybe like, yeah, tomorrow, if you do well, then we'll just go ahead and continue to the market. Yeah, anybody else? Because my understanding is that some of you guys reached out and said you need time, so I didn't really push too much on the Sunday. So that's fine.
For the
But I'll
mock
reach out to you.
interviews, do you want us just reviewing the sample questions that you had posted?
So I don't know. I mean, for you, like we have to get you a script and a resume. So the mock interview is all about the script, right? The reason why we want you to say exactly like what's on the script is because that will help you sound like somebody with a lot of knowledge in QA, and it will help you set up interviews, and you will probably feel more confident talking to people without, raising a red flag. And then once you set up the actual interview, we're gonna have separate prep, right? We're gonna sit down, we're gonna have 1 or 2 hours of prep. I'll evaluate you, I'll see where we are lacking, and then I'll see what kind of help do you need. And that will be done that way. But at least this mock interview is mostly like, okay, can you explain your background? Can you tell me about yourself? Can you tell me about the last position that you worked in? I see Selenium on your resume. Tell me a bit more about Selenium. I see Jira on your resume. Can you tell me where you used it? So these are the initial, very basic questions that I will be asking during the mock interview.
Okay, understood. I think there was a script that was posted. I didn't know if that was the general one for everyone.
Everybody will have their own for the,
Okay.
It's going to be based on the resume, but then the script that was posted by Shantabai, that was a sample interaction between you and the recruiter. And this is just for you to be more confident when you talk to them.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. So if nobody else have any questions, yeah, right now I would say reach out to me personally because we're so close. The last thing I want is that somebody is misunderstood and misguided and somehow, remove some of the motivation that you have. So reach out to me, if you need to reach out to me a couple of times, just go ahead and call me. We'll talk about it and see, what I can do for you. But remember, once you go on the market and you're talking to people and recruiters, your portion of the work you'll be doing. So I will not be helping you talking to the recruiters. And that's why we're trying to do the mock interview and make sure that you're ready for that kind of interaction, right? It's this person-to-person conversation, right? You're talking to another person who has very light understanding of QA. Recruiters don't know what QA do, right? They don't know what we do, right? So it gets easier for us to like kind of, impress them. But also there are some recruiters, they have been talking to so many QAs over the years, they end up getting a lot of, understanding what we do. So they will, they will evaluate you, and you should be able to at least appear to be somebody who has a lot of knowledge initially. So that way we can actually move on to the next stage, which is the interview, actual interview. Okay, so like I said, anybody here with a resume and script, whenever you're ready, just let me know. I'll probably spend some time. It's like 2 hours. I'll probably do an on call and then put your resume out there, and then from there on you're live, and now you can choose to set up the interviews, and you can also let me know whenever you have the interview. So if you do set up an interview and you say this is the time, you gotta let me know. For Amit, you gotta do it on your day off, I guess. I know you don't have weekend off, which is great, right? We don't need the weekend off. You need the weekdays. So all of your interview you put into one day, right? So when you're out there, you're talking to recruiters, you're gonna say, if you cannot talk, maybe you're at a job, you're doing something important, you just tell them like, hey, can I call you guys in like that time or this time? I'm currently busy, I'm dealing with something.
Yeah,
and then
my days off are all over the place right now, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But I spoke
but
to
at
my
least
boss, and he's
Mhm.
willing to work with me on that.
Okay, but you at least will know like a week before, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that's good. So at least if you know, like, let's say you're off on Tuesday, for that week, you tell all the recruiters, put everything on Tuesday, right? Then the next week, if you're off on Wednesday, then you tell the same thing. And then, yeah, like, again, like, we will try to get the right possible position for you, because, you have to make the hardest decision. I'm at least among all of us here. But it has to be the right position, even if it takes a couple months extra.
Don't worry, as long as the money's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, definitely. All right, sounds good. And yeah, so like I said, reach out to me personally. Tomorrow I'll have some time. Tonight I would probably take on one of you guys, but I have to help somebody who recently, so they work for Chase Bank as a contractor for the last year and a half, I believe, and now the Chase Bank wants to take them full time, and I have to help them with reference and other things. So I'm gonna reach out and see what they need from me. But as you can see, like, you start as a contractor, and somehow the companies, they want to take you in. Chase Bank do not do remote, unfortunately. So so if you do happen to get a job, you'll be on site. We actually have like at least maybe like 8 or 9 people in Chase Bank over the years, because there's this one person came into me, and he's like, the only thing he cares about is Chase Bank, this specific job. And I'm like, oh, and I'm thinking, like, I'm optimistic. I'm like, okay, we'll see, let's do the course. 3 months later, we've almost finishing the course. He got the resume, and he applied independently, like separate, and somehow he got the interview, and we didn't even like prep or anything. And he's like, oh, I have an interview. And I'm like, I thought it was joking, but it wasn't. And then the first interview was on the phone, and the second interview was on the face-to-face. And I'm like, oh, it's not gonna happen, because it's like the very first ever thing that he did, right? He didn't even do any other interviews. And I kind of lied to myself and lied to him, saying, okay, just go, we're going to be fine. He actually went and passed the interview. The manager was super nice. All he talked about is just, everything that he asked during the phone call, and manual testing was more focused. Automation was something that they were just getting into in that team. So somehow he got it. And then guess what happened? After he got it, his brother, who got a job through me, and he was in PA. So he actually worked from PA, and that's pre-pandemic, right? Before pandemic. And his brother's like, oh, Jewel, I'd like to also like apply and everything. So he did his application, and one day his manager was going over the resumes that got posted through the website, and he matched the last name. And he's like, oh, do you know this person? Because they got this same last name. And he's like, that's my brother. And then the manager is like, oh, okay, we'll invite him in. So he goes and he gets a job. but obviously the conflict of interest, because of conflict of interest, they had to put him into a separate team. And then they have another friend of them who came in, and he's doing the classes, and he's like, somehow he has his eyes on, you know, the website for Chase Bank for some reasons. And he's like, oh, Jewel, you know, I want to be with them and this and that. So somehow we were able to get a contract position with Chase Bank for him in Delaware. It wasn't even New York City. He started working 6 months later. He was able to get into the same team as his friend, right? So, and then he left that position, came in, and we started working in One Chase Plaza. And it's just incredible. I'm like, this is, I can't just believe, you know, with my own eyes, this is happening. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is crazy. These guys are like making it happen. But it's all it takes is, I would say, you know, you're believing in your own self and just keep it going. And then things will happen. But I think at least we're more than ready for, compared to what I see, the amount of like QA engineers that I talk to over the time. Like I have 2 people in my team right now, and I'm actually training them on automation currently. And these guys have no idea how Git works. These guys have no idea what is, you know, how Selenium works. They don't know what programming language is. And now I'm like kind of training just like how I do it here. And it just tells me that, you know, if these guys made it, you know, I think we're more than ready. All of you guys that did this class, we did more than what these guys are doing at work, you know? So have some confidence, but also believe in yourself. There will be time where you'll talk about a position and you'll feel like you're no good for it, but that's totally fine. You move on, and then you will get a position where they treat you better, right? And you feel like that is the position that you know, you would like to do, and they will also welcome you in that kind of position. So that's one of the things. You'll have to fall into the right positions, right? Because you'll be talking to a lot of people. There will be rude people, there will be nice people. I cannot guarantee that somebody's not gonna like be rude to you, right? Because you're talking to 10, 15 people per day. Depending on the day and the time you're talking to them, maybe they had an argument with their wife, whatever is the case, they will, you know, it will get a little bit, you know, unexpected time to times, but just tell yourself, okay, next, you know, just move on, the next and the next and the next. Who's next, right? This recruiter, I don't like it, next. And just keep in mind, recruiters are not equivalent to you because you have more knowledge than them. You got the training on QA and they are just hiring. That's it. They're just hiring. They read the requirement for sure. And over the years, just by reading the requirement of job descriptions, they get to know what is what, but they don't have the depth of the training. Otherwise, they would end up getting a job because recruiting is not a lot of money compared to the QA job. So don't get intimidated by recruiters. Also, the way you should treat them is that they're your friends, right? Recruiters are your friends, and it's because they want to place you so that way they can get paid. You know, they get anywhere between $20,000 to $30,000 for placing you. Okay, so that's a lot of money for them to, you know, for them to do that hard work. And you'll see, like, they will literally call you, they will beg you to, you know, submit the resume. They will say, can you reply to me with confirmation? And you'll be like, wow, what kind of job does this, where the recruiter literally begging me to reply? You know, other companies, if you don't reply, they will not even reach out to you. And only in IT, fortunately, right? Because they get paid, people get paid, right? To help you get a job. So just treat them like a friend, be nice to them. Don't make assumptions early. You know, I did talk a lot of crap about recruiters, but like I said, don't make assumptions. Don't make, you know, don't treat them any differently. Just treat them nice and you'll be fine. Okay, guys, so with that said, we'll talk soon. I'll see you guys on Saturday, and those who are ready, reach out to me personally. I'll get you guys going tomorrow. And I know a few of you guys is missing resume, so I know I think Sonia and Amit,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay, I'll work on those by tomorrow, I'll get you guys something. Okay. All right. I'll see you guys on Saturday.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good
Good night.